Oh, hi there. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about the Ukraine Russian conflict war. Um, there's a very interesting video by Time Ghost that I would recommend saying that Ukraine is indeed a country and the Russian annexation of Crimea through fraudulent voting was, they didn't say stealing, but that's essentially what they meant. Excellent video. I recommend watching that. But anyway, that's not what I wanted to talk about. Today, I'm simply putting out there that it is possible. I wouldn't recommend it. I most certainly have no interest in doing it. Um, it is possible to actually join either side in Ukraine as far as either fighting for the Ukrainians, maybe even to a lesser extent, the militia factors that are still operating under their own military jurisdiction against the Russian invaders. However, what a lot of people don't know is it's actually entirely possible to join the Russian Federation. And as I said, and I'll say it again, I would not recommend it. I would most certainly not do it myself. I'm simply stating that it is actually possible if somebody was ideologically inclined and I'm not going to say it would be easy. I'm not going to say you would get anything out of it. In fact, you stand to lose so much, more so than you would if you join Ukraine. Now, to join Ukraine, basically, you would go to an embassy. They give you instructions, whatever those may be. I don't know. As a civilian, I'm not entitled to know. However, I think I'm allowed to have an opinion about it. Um, Essentially, they would train you, give you psychiatric evaluation, test your ability through vigorous training. And who even knows, the war might end long before anyone thinking like that might get there. Um, However, some people may find the appeal of going over there unlike anything back home where they're from, whether they're from Britain, France, um, any of the Baltic states that are part of NATO, you know, the US, Canadians, etc. There would be no experience quite like it. And, perhaps there are some people who, reminiscent of the countless hours of history that is available on, especially the internet, but just plain well available, and feel that they need to pursue such a thing for whatever reasons. Um, As far as joining the Ukrainians, there are some people, not that many from the Western world, that have. They had 20,000 odd volunteers. Last I heard, I haven't really looked into it. And again, because this is actually considered a war, the official figures have to be disguised for various reasons, so it's fair for them to lie in that regard. Um, as one may know, it is impossible to just jump on a charter plane and fly to Ukraine, or and most especially Russia. That cannot be done. Not right now, and probably not for a good, very, 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 very long time. Um, what it is essentially is that through the proper channels, deep dark in the underworld, it is, in my belief, possible if somebody were inclined to join the Russian Federation. There was reports of Syrian fighters fighting for the Russians, and you would think, as anyone watching this video would be part of the Western sphere of influence, that it would be impossible to join the Russians because the Russians could never trust anyone from this side of the globe, even if Steven Seagal, promoted them. Um, the thing is, um, renouncing of citizenship, um, going through the proper channels, which might mean going to that exact same embassy you would use to join up to join the Ukrainians. You would speak to Ukrainian officials as well as Russian. You'd take a whole pile of flack from them, and so much more from military personnel that you would have to go through to begin a sort of a grouping or a placement to put you in the Russian colors. Um, some people feel as though that this is an ideological war, and there are some, Jason Unruh, but he's a big fat coward, who, I haven't actually looked up if he's pro-Russian, but he was definitely pro-communist, and he acted like it was still a thing. So I don't know if he was able to stir up something in somebody who already believed that sort of nonsense anyway. But a lot of people think this is an ideological war. It isn't. It's an economic one. And people go, well, look at both of their economies. The Ukraine economy's, being bombed. They lost a big, expensive nuclear power plant. The Russian ruble is collapsing. McDonald's is pulled out of Russia. Where is the economics in this? Well, what does Russia want? And I've said this before. They want the Black Sea. Anyway, that's drifting off topic for a moment. So there would be a big bunch of hoops to jump through to join the Russian Federation and their army. You would be put in a probably some sort of loser regiment, just a hashtag of randoms. Supposedly, they had mostly conscripts there, which would not be an effective fighting force, except for that I suppose they'd gain experience by doing what they were doing. Not everyone on the Russian side was, a conscript, and therefore, not a seasoned veteran of the Russian army. It would be seriously ill-advised because the Russians, this is their war. It's Ukraine's war. And as an outsider going in, they will automatically feel that you are entering their domain. And from the West point of view, them sending over Westerners, as I've seen them do before, there were people who fought for ISIS. I can't remember the fellow's name who did and was killed. He was basically some sort of celebrity of some sorts on the television after he got bumped off, but supposedly he was there for quite a while beforehand, and same for the Taliban and all those other things, which obviously means it would be, anyone from the West who went to Russia to fight for the Russians against the Ukrainians would be there for propaganda purposes, and that very well mean, getting blown up to a million pieces. That might be part of the project. Who knows? And even if you do win, you could never come back. That would be it. You're done in the West. You renounced your citizenship, and you've lost all privileges in the West. Um, and if you didn't do anything particularly significant, especially as the Russian economy has just taken a serious blow, you would likely end up as a very poor person in Russia. You would had to have done something notable to ascertain any notable achievements. And it would do you well to be able to speak Russian if you were to go there. Because they'll assume you're a clever liar if you don't know don't know Russian, and if you don't know Russian, they'll assume you do, and they'll get it out of you, and then after they're convinced that you don't have it, you'd be rather tenderized. So it's simply better if somebody wanted to do that to learn some Russian. As it were, I have a what is it? Oh, I dug this up from years ago. Language learning software. Yeah, very great name. But anyway, I had one for German and I got one for Russian because I was studying what was going on in the propaganda from the 30s to the 40s and the 50s, because it's, those are two important languages and they're very different from each other. There are many languages that are very similar. Believe it or not, German and English are very similar languages. They don't sound like that, but they are, especially when you get into the grammar of all of it. And then you get the Russian language, which is very similar to a few other Slavic languages. In fact, they speak Russian in a lot of other Slavic countries, and regions and areas and all that sort of stuff. So this would more, be a video for those, we'll call it left wing, even though that's a bit of a stretch, for those other bordering countries, not just Belarus, but the other bordering countries of Russia. Yes, theoretically it is possible, and it simply sounds crazy. It sounds absolutely crazy that there wouldn't be a strict lockdown on such a thing, but I am convinced that it is a real thing, and don't be surprised if that shows up as propaganda at some point in Western media. Some sort of faction from the West has joined the Russian Federation. Can't imagine why they would. Possibility of success is basically none. Chance of, utter obliteration almost complete. Regardless of what happens in Ukraine, anything could happen. As it were, I think the war is going to simmer out because the excuses that Russia had to go in the first place, which is liberating those eastern Ukrainian province areas, cities, towns, whatever, that is kind of drawn flat. This eradication of neo-Nazism that Putin goes on about, what even is that? What is that? That sounds like a made-up combination of words. There are neo-Nazis who operate in Russia. They don't do the same sort of things. And yes, there are neo-Nazis in Ukraine. And yes, they've been fighting Eastern Ukrainian forces that are pro-Russian and blah, 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 blah. It's all a lot of stupid propaganda. But it's like, it could be literally the Reich if it existed in language and the pretext for war by the Russians or by Eastern Europeans. It really would be the 1,000-year Reich. Like, seriously, the Russians are never going to let that go. And that really shows, how close to the bleak existence they were. the Soviet Union at that particular time. And then it ended up, kind of whimpering out in 91 anyway. Um, so they fared a little bit longer, but, like, never let it go. And it's like, that's not actually the reasons why you're going there. And you get a fellow named Paul Joseph Watson. He's also got a channel called Anything Goes. I kind of don't like his stance. Some of the points he makes are, all good and well. However, I can sort of see through him and see what his perspective of the war is, and he is very Russian leaning from what I've seen, almost defending them without much concept of what they're actually doing, dismissing the actual carnage that is occurring in the Ukraine, which is very real. He cites videos where there are areas that are relatively undamaged, and he goes, "Oh, look at the West exaggeration of this." That's because they don't show the ones that are inhumanly grotesque in Western media. We have no access to it, nor should we. It's not in our neck of the woods. It's not our business, in the sense that the public should have no right to know. Well, little bits here and there, a little bit of some interesting information, but as far as the grotesqueness of it, they don't need to know that. It's better not to. It's psychologically better for a person not to know that. And sure, fine, the government gets to see all that stuff. And no, they shouldn't make it public. Shouldn't be allowed by mainstream media on any platform. And if you're a neighboring country and you're going, well, gee whiz, we don't know what the Russians are going to do. If you let a bully push you around, odds are they're going to think they can get away with it, and they're going to continue to do so. I didn't actually see Putin, considering he was the Russian president and all that, being that much of a bully before. Obviously the whole conflict in that area had been going on for years and all that, and the economic value of Crimea, as well as pretty much the whole surrounding of the Black Sea, has its appeals for a government entity like the Russian Federation as well as the Ukraine. And a lot of stuff, a lot of serious conversation, a lot of angry, mostly men, has been going on. And it's like, when you see, or if you were to see people that angry and they have nuclear weapons, you do start to wonder, could this turn into a nuclear war? Look how angry those guys are, and they have the ability to launch missiles. So think about that. You may go, well, that's science fiction. What, you've been watching too much Dr. Strangelove and all that sort of stuff. And it's like, well, actually, let's say, those guys are kind of really angry over there. They have a nuclear weapon, not even very hard to build. If you, have a few guys who went to university and have the equipment and the materials, they could build a crude one. And, that is a very, very unsettling set of circumstances. I mean, another good documentary to watch would be Countdown to Zero. Although I don't believe Obama for a second that he wants zero nuclear weapons. But anyway, it was a good documentary. Anyway, so I'll finish this up. Theoretically, if somebody wanted to join the army, so to speak, and they were strong enough and capable enough and, smart enough to be an idiot soldier, then they theoretically could do it. Um, However, myself, I would not recommend it. Um, yeah, nothing for it. Anyway, all the best for the Ukrainians. Hope they pull out of this one fairly good. Anyway, talk to you people later. Have a good one.